EAGLES, Eagles.
Welcome in, everybody, to a new week here on Birds 365, a Monday edition of the show, brought to you here on JAKIB Sports from 8 to 10 a.m. Johnny Mac, how you doing in this Monday morning, brother, as we kick off another week, inching closer to the NFL draft and football relevancy again?
Yeah, we're a day away from draft month. So everybody, first off, be careful tomorrow because it's April 1st. So beware of April Fool's Day. But and then the league meeting started yesterday down in South Florida. So we're going to have to suffer through 2 more days of tush-push nonsense until it gets either voted down or tabled. I don't think anyway it's passed, but you've seen some of the stories. They're going to milk this thing until there's no, I guess, juice it till there's nothing left. And that hopefully it'll end tomorrow, but it'll be back. Just a matter of when.
They'll be milking it. They're down in Palm Beach for the meetings. We've got plenty of stuff to talk about. We're going to talk about some coaching staff. Today, Johnny Mac, I saw you right about that. The Eagles put their final coaching staff out on X. I saw that on their website, so we'll talk about that a little bit. We'll talk about filling out the rest of this roster. We're going to have Chris Franklin in hour number 2. So for those who listen in on our Monday shows every week, normally we have the great Jeff Kerr. Jeff Kerr does baseball, so the Phillies home opener is today. So he will not be with us. He'll be with us on Thursday.
Maybe some weather. Phillies home opener.
So. I'm not going to the game. I was supposed to go to the game. The station had gotten us tickets, but I'm not going because I don't want. I can only go to so many games. I'm not going to go to one where I'm rained out. But so we'll see what happens to Jeff Kerr. But he'll join us on Thursday. We'll talk to Chris Franklin in hour number 2 today, and then we'll talk a little bit about this coaching stuff. I do want to run the tush push thing by. I know we're beating a dead horse here, but at the end of the day, there is some new developments in it, John, because we talked about how the Packers made the proposal, and you had said on this show.
Such a bad proposal, by the
way. It was a terrible proposal, not worded the right way. Anybody who listens to the show has heard you explain this numerous times about the problems with the proposal. But now it is, the rumor coming out of the meetings is that it's gained support or has support within the competition committee. John, you've been very clear that until the competition committee brings this forward, we're good. I mean, they're not going to ban it, but that's the recent development there. Nick Sirianni spoke about his former coaches that he wants to vote on his side. So we'll see if they vote with him. I saw you put out, he's flexing his coaching tree. But outside of that, John, what are the developments here as the competition committee has now gotten hold of the tush-push ban supporting it?
Yeah, well, I think that's a positive step for the people that want it banned. The fact that the competition committee is now sort of at least there's some support for it. And until that happened, to me, it was always going to be a non-starter. So I think, Diana Rossini did Friday. I think people got a little bit hyped up about, and that's what she was talking about. It is advancing, but the last time they brought it up, they never voted on anything because it quickly got diminished and there was no support. And I think if you look at it logically, what she's saying is there's more support now than then to ban it. But I still don't think you get to 24 votes, and that's what you need, 24 of the 32 owners. That's what you need. And Nick can lobby his old coaches as much as he wants, but they're not the ones voting now. In traditional organizations, some Jeffrey Lurie's going to listen to his people. Other people are not going to listen to their people and do what they want to do.
Depends what kind of owner you have. Yeah,
it depends what kind of exactly. So that's part of it. But I mean, the fact that and I've been eventually get used to it. It's gone eventually. I don't think it's gone Tuesday when they're scheduled to have the vote, but eventually it's leaving the game. But they're going to have to rework it and redo it differently. And what they had pre-2005 for those who don't remember, those who aren't longtime fans, it was illegal. You could not aid runners. You could not push runners. And in 2005, they changed the rule out of nowhere, which was probably a mistake at the time. And the reasoning at the time was it was too difficult to legislate, which I think is incredibly. I mean, I think it's so easy to legislate as opposed to, say, pass interference, where it's subjective. You push somebody, it's a penalty. That's pretty that's pretty easy to legislate. And I think eventually that'll come back to the pre-2005. But the way the Packers, wrote this thing up, it was about the specific one play. So in other words, from their perspective, you ban the tush push, but you don't ban pushing guys downfield or pushing a runner, on a sweep play from behind, which you would still be able to do. And, to me, that's nonsense. And then the reasons they gave, and Troy Benson's already on record, they said safety. I feel like all these teams, they just throw safety in there. Safety reasons.
Yeah, it's like every rule is like part of it is safety, whether it even makes sense or not.
And Troy Benson already said there's no data that supports the safety issue.
Well, that's become such a hot word, John, isn't it?
Yeah.
In football? Yeah.
Well, and I think that's why they throw it in there.
Exactly.
And then the one that is catching on is the NFC Championship game between the Commanders and the Eagles, when you had the situation that it was pretty ugly, where Washington was trying to guess the Eagles snap count, and the Eagles knew they were trying to guess the snap count, took advantage of it, and drew them off sides, and it was just ugly and clunky. Which it was, and I don't blame either team, because the Commanders are trying to guess and try to stop the Eagles, and the Eagles are taking advantage. So I don't blame the players, but it was just ugly from the standpoint of the league, and they don't want the game to look like that. And I know Caitlin Kaler's down there, and she does a great job. She works for ESPN now. I know she got some quotes from people down there, and they called that specific series a shit show, which it was, and they don't want that in the game. So I think they're latching on to that, and I think that's where the support comes from. And they called it, the Green Bay called it pace of play. So that part is more realistic than the injury part of it, which is kind of silly. And that's just tacked on. But I mean, you have to increase it. And to include everything and go back to the pre-2005 rule change. And I think once they get to that, I think they can pass it. Now, for tomorrow, for Eagles fans who are worried about this, first, don't be worried about it. No, the Eagles are going to be fine. They're going to be a great quarterback sneak team, even if it is passed, which I can't believe it is passed. I think the worst, for those people that are really concerned about it, though, the worst thing to me would be if it's tabled. And that means they know they don't have the 24 votes, so they're going to pull it back,
right?
And they're going to rework it in July. And they're going to put it back up, and the competitions committee is going to back it, and then it'll pass. So I think if you hear the word tabled, I think that's the worst case situation. And, this has been very slow moving. I always go back to, I think it was 2015. I don't know if football fans will remember the Patriots and the Ravens played this game where the Patriots had these formational tricks that really upset the Ravens, but they were legal. Right. Just nobody else figured it out. What they did is they put 4 offensive linemen on the field. That's it. And they put a tight end at left tackle, and they put a slot receiver out and a normal slot receiver, but the tight end was eligible. Remember, you have only 5 ineligible. You have to have those 5 ineligible players. And if you're eligible and you're on the line, you have to report. So the tight end at the time would report he's eligible. The slot receiver was in it, became ineligible because he was the closest to the line. The Ravens had no fucking idea what was going on because nobody had ever done it before. And the Patriots took advantage of the rule, and they deserve credit for it. But guess what? That offseason, they said, no. That's not what we wanted, and they changed it. And now if you're on the line, if you're jumped up, and you can be eligible, but you can't do what the Patriots did. You can't have the slot receiver being ineligible. So they changed it right in that offseason. In this instance, it's taken a very long time for somebody to take advantage of this, which the Eagles have beautifully, and it's not their fault, and they shouldn't be punished for it. But the league has a different mindset, and they're trying to improve the game. And I think ultimately they don't want it in the game. They know they made a mistake. Eventually it's going to leave. When it's going to leave, I think they got to get a better rule and go back just to the 2005, pre-2005 version of football, where nobody can push anybody. And I think that's where you should be.
All right. So Tuesday, John, will we know Tuesday whether they table it or make a decision, or is that just another development? But we will get an answer Tuesday?
Yeah, Tuesday is scheduled to vote. So if they vote, you're going to hear about the vote.
Right. And then if they table it, they would push it to July. And you mentioned July. Do they have another meeting in July? Is that what's in July?
Well, they have league meetings, I believe. I haven't looked at this year's calendar. I'm going on.
But around that time, somewhere in there.
Somewhere. Okay. But, they generally have one. And they have one in May, I think, as well. So they could do it earlier. But at some point, if they table it, I think that's a signal that, all right, the competition wants to take over and try to get it through. It's no guarantee they'll get it through, but that's a much easier way to do it than trying to get this monstrosity that the Packers put together, which is not even worded well.
Yeah, it's not even worded, and there's a lot of differing viewpoints coming out. Like I saw yesterday in an ESPN article, I'll get to that. I also saw a tweet from Warren Sharp. After the meeting, Cowboys co-owner Steven said, we don't allow pushing, and we're trying to be consistent with our rules, which I don't even think that's right. What Steven Jones.
Well, of course they allow, but they don't allow pushing on defense, which is what. Of course they allow pushing. That's the whole point.
This is an example, though, of the legislation in the league just being ridiculous. It doesn't even make sense half the way it's legislated. And then you have the other side. An ESPN article I was reading that they put out, and there's a line in there that says it reeks of jealousy. So some teams are not in on it, some teams are on it. It all depends on, I guess, who you are.
And I think that's why it does reek of jealousy from the standpoint of, it's the same thing. And that's why I bring up the Patriots formational tricks. Mm-hmm. They changed them because of jealousy. They're the only ones that figured it out.
Right.
But they figured it out. And it's what they don't want the game to go that way. So I don't have a problem with the league getting together and say, we don't want this, but you can't go about it and say, all right, we're going to punish one particular team because of success. And that's how everybody has taken this, because of the way it was worded. And the way it was worded, and I'm trying to find the exact way it was, and I'll read it for everybody when I can find it. But it's just, it looks like they're trying to target the Eagles. And I mean, that's how everybody's taking it, and I understand why everybody's taking it. That's not what the league believes, but that's what the Packers did. So I don't think you should go about it that way. And I don't think ultimately it's going to pass because of the way they did it. But that's just obviously my take on it. Others, obviously those in Philadelphia are going to just assume that it's against the Eagles, and I get it. But I think it's just I think it's got to be removed from the game, but I think it's got to be done in a more substantial way.
It's amazing that we've made it to this far. How many years of football? How many years of the NFL? And we're legislating this play now. Like common sense would be like, oh, we have 1,600 pounds of offensive linemen on the line. You would think people would be doing this forever.
And by the way, as I said, the Eagles have been a great quarterback sneak team before it.
Yep.
They will be a great quarterback sneak team after it because of their quarterback and their offensive line. They actually had a higher snap successful percentage when Carson Wentz was running it in 2017, and they were just running the conventional quarterback sneak. They will be just as successful. But here's the wording: prohibit an offensive player from pushing a teammate who was lined up directly behind the snapper and receives the snap immediately at the snap. First of all, grammatically, that's horrible. Secondly, but I digress. Secondly, that means you could just blank them as long as you're not directly behind them, which the Eagles do sometimes. So you sort of a wing formation.
Right.
And then you have Dallas Goedert, if he's here, or Saquon Barkley, who will be here. So, all right, they take one step and it's the worst word from that standpoint. I can't imagine you're literally passing a rule that wouldn't change anything except somebody has to take a step half foot over and not line up directly behind the quarterback.
Right. So the proposal isn't even close to what it should have been in order for it to make sense.
No. So this specific proposal by the Packers, it is worthless. It doesn't change anything. I don't know if it makes people feel better. When they changed the crown of the helmet rule, I don't know if you remember that. They changed that for Adrian Peterson because he used to duck his helmet.
Yeah.
By the way, is not, I don't recommend anybody does that, but he was a little bit different. And he used to truck people. And they removed it from the game. They never call it though. Every once in a blue moon. So that entire offseason, everybody was incensed. They were saying this isn't football, yada yada. They're all worried about running backs trying to get extra yardage. They never call it. So I mean, they made this rule that they don't even use, which again we talk about the over legislation of the game. I guess that could happen here, but I mean, it's worded so poorly. The Eagles could just take a step left or a step right and keep doing the same thing.
Interesting stuff. The one quote I do want to tell the people from Nick Sirianni, which is pretty good. He says, Jonathan Gannon, Kellen Moore, Shane Steichen are head coaches because of that play. So I better have those 3 votes right there and the Eagles vote. I at least know we have 4. Pretty funny stuff from Nick Sirianni talking about his former coaches and the way they should vote on the tush push. But we'll see what ends up happening with this, Johnny Mac. The one thing I will agree with you on is it does seem that the consensus is shifting toward this being out of the game. It doesn't mean it's going to be this offseason or right now, but I think you're right in that if not this year, next year, or the year after, at some point, I do think this is going to go away. It seems like that's where the consensus is going. But right now, we'll see what ends up happening. The one other play, John, that sticks in mind, or the one other moment that sticks in my mind as swaying perception, public perception. It's one thing if you do a tush push on a 1 p.m. game versus the Panthers, but that NFC Championship game, the long drawn out when Frankie Louvu kept jumping over the offensive line, like that's the type of moment that I could see people watching, not just the general public, decision makers, owners, guys in front offices watching.
Yeah, that's
get rid of this. Get rid of this stupid play.
That's the set. That's where it gained some momentum.
Yeah, I agree.
That particular series. And obviously Eagles fans, I see some are going to blame Frankie Louvu. That's fine. Whatever makes you feel good. But they didn't like the sequence.
I mean, I'm an Eagles fan. It was a pretty ugly sequence of plays for a 80 million viewer game, or however many it was, 50 million viewer game.
Yeah. So, I mean, it is what it is. I don't think they should have ever. I go back to the Bush in college. I don't think it should be allowed. I've never thought it should be allowed. You know, that everything is shifted, but you know, I tend to feel sorry for the defense, and everything shifted towards the offense, or they try to shift it. That's another reason we're going to talk about the coaching staff, but another reason the Eagles Super Bowl championship was so amazing last year because of the defense. And everything you're up against on a daily basis. And now, you know, for those who are longtime football fans, you know, if you stop somebody's forward momentum back in the day, the play was over. And now they let it go on forever, and everybody's, you know, getting behind people. And it's like, you've done your job as a defender, and now you got to worry about 18 other guys because you haven't gotten them
right
on the ground. And they talk about safety and all that bullshit. That's where you can bring safety into it. If you say the entire pushing conversation is in it. So not only the tush push, but also pushing a running back inside the 5-yard line, pushing anybody, pushing a receiver. You see a receiver, you know, some of these corners can't deal with some of these bigger receivers like A.J. Brown. They can't get them to the ground, and you're just waiting for the cavalry to come, and about 18 offensive players go. Obviously, being facetious, there's only a certain amount on the field, but they keep pushing and pushing. All of that should be out of the game. All of it. All of it.
right
Especially for the hypocrites that talk about safety. That's where safety comes into it. You're extending plays. You're giving more time for people to get hurt. Yeah, it never made sense that they changed the rule in 2005. And the only reason now where I will support Eagles fans is their only reason they're bringing up now is because the Eagles have too much success along with the Louvu sequence. So those are the two reasons. And
that's what pisses me off. Like if it's such a non-football play, then why don't more teams do it right now? Josh Allen's a great quarterback you can do it with. And as we speak right here on Birds 365, I want to thank everybody for being here. There are coaches at the meetings talking to reporters 13 minutes ago. Sean McDermott is not in favor of the tush push. He's very anti-push and suggests there is injury risk and the pushing. He doesn't think that element is fair. And then Kevin Stefanski, the Browns head coach, I don't think it should be legislated out of the game. That's a direct quote from Kevin Stefanski. So there is a lot of conflicting opinions on this.
I think it's interesting you bring up those two guys. One's a defensive guy who, by the way, has had the second most success using it, or his offensive staff has, Buffalo. And one's an offensive guy, Kevin. So you kind of see, the defense, it's not fair to the defense, but nothing's fair for the defense.
Yeah, but why is McDermott saying there's injury concern when the data already came out about that?
I don't know. You know, again, there's so much hypocrisy around the injury issue.
Well, but that's where but John, the one part about that is that's where it falls into exactly what you've been saying, why what you're saying is important, because the way they brought it forward doesn't make sense. And then you have Sean McDermott out there saying there's injury risk. That's not really what the basis should be on if they want to get this removed.
Yeah, I would focus,
as you said many times on the show.
I would focus on pace of play, which was the other reason. They cited two: injury risk and pace of play. I would focus if I, wanted to push this through. I would focus on pace of play because Troy Vincent has already said the injury data is not there to support the other one. But again, basically, there's so much injury risk in football. The hypocrisy over it, it's a pet peeve of mine personally, because people will bring it up when they want it brought up and people will ignore it when they ignore it. one thing I always say about hypocrites, they don't care that they're hypocrites. So there's no use getting upset about it. I mean, they're hypocrites. But, you know, if you want to, and I've said this pretty consistently, if you want to play NFL football, there's an injury risk on every play.
Yeah, I mean, if you could legitimately ban the entire game of football.
Well, that's what I said. If you're being honest,
route, yeah,
I've said this numerous times. If you're being honest, and I'll have that conversation with you, and you want to ban football, you can make some good points, but you can't say, "Oh, I'm taking the kickoff out, and it's more bullshit, tush push injury bullshit." And you're not even worried about injuries. You're worried about one specific type of injury, and that's concussions. Like, nobody cares about torn ACLs. Like, if Carson Wentz is on the field playing through a torn ACL, and he's converting a 2-point conversion and scoring a touchdown with a torn ACL. Joe Flacco did it, I think, once. He's playing with a torn ACL and he's got no movement, and everybody's like, "What a tough guy! What a tough guy!"
Right.
Well, A, yes, tremendously tough guy. B, pretty significant injury risk when you got a guy out there who can't move. Nobody gives a shit.
John? Carson Wentz threw a touchdown on a torn ACL.
Yeah, that's when I brought up Carson.
Oh, okay.
That again, hypocrisy. Nobody cares. You care about, and they don't even care about that, to be honest. It's just legal indemnity issues and future lawsuits with concussions. And you know, fans are the same way. They don't give a shit. They're being honest with themselves.
Right.
But, you know, they don't care about torn ACLs or, you know, tearing triceps in the Super Bowl. Or
sorry, but I think it's all bullshit on the injury stuff. I really do. I'm not saying injuries aren't a thing here, but I think people use that excuse when they want something to go their way. When they don't bring it up. It's football. I mean, this is it. They all decided to play this physical game. I mean, I think it's pretty stupid. But anyway, I digress. Let's move on a little bit. Last word on this is Shane Steichen says Nick Sirianni talked to him about the tush-push support. Steichen says he's in favor of the play staying. So there you go. Shane Steichen will listen to Nick Sirianni, and he will not go against the tush push of the Birds. We will keep you guys posted on that.
Unfortunately, Nick, Shane ain't voting.
No, Shane ain't voting.
And he's got a wild card.
Yeah, his owner's a wild card, baby.
Yeah. That's kind of my point. But, you know, Indianapolis will probably I think he'd listen to Shane. But, yeah, the coaches ain't voting.
That's pretty wild. They need 75% of owners to get to move.
Well, they want to make the bar difficult because you know. But you know, sometimes, you know, there's a lot of other more important things they're talking about this week down there. 18 games. They're going to start that conversation. Changing overtime, which, by the way, the Eagles have were the ones that put that forward, making it. And by the way, I support this. Common sense is they have different overtime rules for the regular season and the postseason. Well, that's fucking stupid. So they want to make them more uniform. And I apologize for my first F-bomb. But, you know, even if you want to go back to when they changed overtime to begin with, that was an overreaction to anecdotal evidence. The NFL is way too reactionary to what happens in the moment. Right now, they're also this week, more important, talking about changing the seeding proposals because you have these shitty division winners getting home playoff games versus 14-win teams.
I agree.
Well, guess what?
I happen to agree with that, but
I happen to agree. I happen to agree with the way it is now. Where you
like that? You like that the division winners?
Yes, you reward division winners.
Right. All right, that's fair.
If you don't reward division winners, you erode the value of winning your division, and that's a slippery slope. And you've seen it with overtime.
Right.
When you're trying to placate people, Yeah, I get it. On one year, some undeserving team might get a home playoff game, and some 14-win team might. And by the way, they could have won the game and not gotten bounced. There's nothing illegal about it.
Yeah.
But as sport, what makes football popular, one of the many things is the scarcity of games, and they keep going up, and that the playoffs mean something. Whereas in other sports, you can argue they don't mean as much because they keep increasing, they keep removing seedings. At least in the NFL, your first goal, and you'll hear every single coach in training camp say, win the division. That's our first goal. Win the division, win the division.
Right.
If you're not giving them something for winning the division, you're
going to
eroding.
create a larger drop off from the top teams to the bottom teams too.
And you're eroding rivalries, which is a big deal in other sports. That is every time you do this kind of stuff, it's that slippery slope. So it's not as important that you beat Dallas or Washington, and the Eagles beat everybody. So it hasn't mattered in the past couple of years. But when you have these legitimate rivalries, best rivalry in the NFL to me is Pittsburgh-Baltimore. If you take away the division crown,
right,
you lose that. Green Bay, Chicago has been around since 1920, since the start of the NFL. Why does it matter? Well, hey,
it's a good point by you. It keeps more of the league alive doing it that way. What about this as a rebuttal to this specific thing? I don't know if this is even ever going to be changed, but division winners get into the playoffs, but the seeding is based on record instead of, making them 1 through 4.
No, because I think it's important to give a division winner a home playoff game.
Yeah, because that's part of the reason that they want to win. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's important to keep the rivalries alive. I think it's important to keep the value of division championships alive. And if you don't, it's like overtime is, I use overtime because it was changed because of one game. Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes. And it was so exciting, and everybody got so excited, and Josh Allen never got a chance to touch the ball. Well, technically he did, but his defense didn't support him. And I find it ironic because people bring it up, and, the Eagles won the Super Bowl in a non-traditional fashion that, a lot of Eagles fans will pump out their chest. We won the game. We won old school football. We ran the football and played defense. All right. Well, if you can play defense, that means everybody else can play defense, no matter all the hurdles.
Right.
Was sudden death perfect? Of course it wasn't perfect. But, you got the Matt Hasselbeck game. He famous coin toss where he said, we're going to take the ball and score. And then he throws a pick six. Defense stepped up, won the game. Just because you won the coin toss, it's no guarantee of anything. Yeah. It's a guarantee if you got a shitty defense on a particular day. That's part of the game. And now they've changed it into this massive mess. And now they got to fix it again because they changed it.
The legislation of this game, for anybody who listens to this show, John has talked about this many times before. It is a big problem, and it's brutal the way they do it. Johnny Mac, let's move on, brother. Let's move on past the tush push and the legislation of the game.
God.
Let's move into the coaching staff, Johnny Mac. The Eagles officially put out their 2025 coaching staff changes on Friday. I want to say that they put this out. By the way, everybody, we're 24 days away from the NFL draft. Not sure if I told you guys our countdown today, but on Friday, the Eagles put out their official coaching staff. All the changes that we've talked about here on Birds 365, but they now become official. Doug Nussmeier gone, Kyle Valero gone, TJ Paganetti gone, and obviously Kellen Moore gone. So those are the 4 gone, all offensive side of the ball guys, and then some new guys coming here. What's that?
This league is so obsessed with offense.
Yeah.
The best defense in the NFL, that's what I wrote about on Sports Illustrated. The best defense in the NFL that kept Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid from crossing the 50-yard line for 9 consecutive drives. Nobody wanted any of those guys.
Nope. It's crazy. They get Kellen Moore. They take all the offensive guys, but nobody. You got Clint Hurt coming back, Christian Parker coming back, Bobby King, Vic Fangio, everybody on the defensive side of the ball. So, Johnny Mac, with that final thing that they put out, I don't think anything different from there, but it is always good to obviously see for those.
No, it was all reported except
Right,
Tyler
Kevin
Yelp got
Kulo,
a
Parks
promotion.
Frazier, Scott Leffler, Montgomery Van Gorder, and Cole Peterson, I think, were the acquisitions. I'm not sure if I left anyone else off, but your thoughts on just that? They finally put that out. So we have some clarity on the coaching staffs coming into 2025.
Yeah, like I said, that's just confirmation. That was all reported before. We knew the changes, and it was all offensively. Now, most of the losses dealt with Kellen Moore. Obviously, he only brought in 2 coaches with him, and those were Doug Nussmeier and Kyle Valero. And so it was pretty obvious they were going to go with him to New Orleans. They've been with him for a long time. They did. The only guy who was here who went is TJ Paganetti. So, their entire defensive coaching, it's amazing to me. But nobody cares about defense in this league. Now, Vic wasn't going anywhere. Vic has said this is his last stop. So, but anybody could have had, because they changed that rule a couple years ago. It used to be if guys were under contract, you could prevent them from leaving for coordinator hirings. But now you can't, because that's a significant promotion. So anybody could have made Christian Parker a defensive coordinator or made Clint Hurt a defensive coordinator, which he already was in Seattle, or made Bobby King a defensive coordinator. Anybody who had an opening. That's the silver lining. All those guys stay. And, if you're being honest, their job was a lot more impressive than Kellen Moore and the offense's job.
It was. It really was.
It's just the way it is. And I think Kellen's a good coach, and I think he'll be fine. And I love Doug Nussmeier. But, they were number 8 when people got run out of town, and they're number 8 with these guys.
You think the fact that all the defensive coaches are back has influenced the front office's decision making this offseason, and what I mean by that is if you lose some of those guys, maybe you don't feel as good about developing players, or you feel good about it, but you got to feel pretty confident based on what they did last year. Bobby King with the linebackers. Look at what they did. Even the defensive line coach from Clint Hurt obviously got Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, all of those guys. Mora with Jomo, Milton Williams. Maybe that changed. All those guys coming back is definitely a good thing. And you look at that defensive side of the ball, they got 6 guys to replace, a lot less than the offensive side.
Well, yeah, I think a lot of people look at that, and again, a lot of people get caught up in the moment and say, well, they don't pay defensive guys. Well, they are going to pay defensive guys. You just got to wait. It's coming. That's one of the reasons they've done the things they've done. So they're paying Jalen Carter. They're paying, they already paid Zach Ball, and he's the one guy they paid. They're going to pay Jalen Carter. They're going to pay Quinyon Mitchell as long as everything goes smoothly. The next 2 years. Same thing with Cooper DeJean. They're going to pay these players. So it's coming, but it's not immediate. So people look at it and say, well, they just pay the offense and not the defense, because the defense are the guys. And I've said it's not about the coaching staff. It's not about that. It's more about that demarcation line I was saying. Those guys are above it. Milton and Josh were below it. So, when you have too many good players, as I've said, rich people problems, you got to decide who you're going to pay. They've decided they're going to pay Jalen Carter to get all your ducks in a row for Jalen Carter and Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean down the road even further. You got to get those ducks in a row. It's not just about right now. It's not just about the immediacy. It's about the longer term, and they know what's coming down the road defensively. And then when those guys get paid, you will see some of the offensive players not getting paid. And they started that a little bit. Would they like to have Mekhi Becton back? Sure. we'll see what happens with Dallas Goedert, but I think he's below that line. And if he's here, he's probably only here for a short time.
Yeah. I mean, you had this many players, man. You got to be even more disciplined, and I think they've showed that this summer with C.J. Gardner-Johnson and Dallas Goedert.
Yeah, C.J. and Slay as well, being a salary cap guy.
Right.
Now, age comes into that as well. But C.J. is another example. And there's some other things involved. I'm not going to pretend there aren't, but
right. Well, look, I love this comment because this is a John McMullen comment here. Andrew Hernandez says, "Rich people problems, but the word problem is still in there." I've heard that before. Good one, Andrew.
Yeah, I say that all the time.
Yep.
There's still problems. Sometimes rich people got some difficult problems too.
Everybody's got problems. We're all humans.
More money, more problems.
Yeah, baby. Biggie, come on.
So, I mean, everybody wants to get paid, and rightfully so, but you can't pay everybody. So you got to draw that line, and Howie's drew that line. They might be wrong with the evaluations, but you got to draw the line, and you got to make those evaluations.
John, is it plausible to say in 4 years, you can either tell me yes or no? In 4 years, the Eagles will spend more on defense than they do on offense.
No.
Overreact? No, right?
No.
Even with,
that's the.
But I'm just saying, if Carter gets paid, Nolan gets paid, Cooper, Quinion.
Yeah, I didn't even bring up Nolan. Glad you brought up Nolan.
Yeah, like Nolan's going to make. Let's say Nolan has 10 sacks this year. He's getting $25 million.
Yeah,
minimum.
It's almost like, if Nolan Smith becomes the player that some people want him to become, I don't know if that's good.
Yeah, it's going to be hard to pay him both.
I think if he develops into a Josh Sweat level of just good performance, in some ways that might be better, as counterintuitive as that is. Because if he turns into a star pass rusher, then you're talking about insane money.
Talking about $25 million plus. Starting at $25 million.
Yeah. So it's but you always, and that's just thinking theoretically in the offseason, you always want players to hit their ceilings, and then you figure it out from there. That's just nonsense from somebody outside the building. You always want players to hit their ceilings. And then, sometimes you got to make difficult decisions like Milton Williams. Nobody wants to lose Milton Williams. Played well in this contract year, didn't play that much, didn't play enough to prove his value, knew it, said, I'm not taking an early extension because I'm going to get a chance to play. Hit an Aaron Judge grand slam. And by the way, I've called the MVP race on day 2 in the American League, but for baseball fans out there, hit a home run, grand slam, can't pay him.
Good stuff, Johnny Mac. Good opening segment here on a Monday edition. I want to welcome and thank everybody for being here. You guys are the best. Birds 365 been killing it. 24 days away from the NFL draft. 24 days until we see the newest acquisitions or the newest pickups for the Eagles roster. So we'll talk about that. We'll dive into a little bit of that after the break. In hour number 2, we're going to talk to Chris Franklin, and we'll keep all you guys posted on what comes out of the meetings down in Palm Beach. The owners and the coaches down there hanging out in Palm Beach, getting some sun. So good stuff for that. We'll keep you guys all posted. Don't forget to hit that like button. We'll be right back in 3 minutes on Birds 365.
The following is a real testimonial from the father of a young injured victim.
I didn't think she was going to make it.
Major Perry's daughter was the victim of a horrific accident caused by someone else's negligence.
If you don't find the right counselor, law firm that you're looking for, you will get lost in the wilderness.
Badly injured? Call the Fritz and Bianculli Law Firm at 215-458-2222 and find out why they say, we got this.
Your financial future is on the line. Are you ready for what's next? At Leone & Company Wealth Management, we help young professionals, business owners, and pre-retirees navigate the complexities of building and protecting wealth. For young professionals, we'll help you grow your wealth, plan for your future, and make the most of your hard-earned dollars. For business owners, we provide strategies to protect your company, manage risks, and create a lasting legacy for both your business and personal wealth. For pre-retirees, we'll design a plan to secure your retirement, ensuring you can live comfortably and confidently in your next chapter. Whether you're just starting out, managing a thriving business, or preparing for retirement, we're here to help you take control of your financial future. The first consultation is on us. Get the advice you need without the cost. Let's make your financial vision a reality. Take the next step. Scan the QR code to schedule your free consultation today. And of course, go Birds.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
In our hometown, we all look out for each other. We step up to keep our communities going strong. And at Independence Blue Cross, we're here to keep you going strong as the #1 health insurer in the region. No IBX is always looking out for you.
EAGLES, Eagles.
Welcome back in, everybody, to Birds 365 here on JAKIB Sports, your #1 Philadelphia Eagles show, keeping you up to date on the Birds all year long. We're live every single weekday from 8 to 10 a.m. here on JAKIB Sports. For those listening on the podcast, we appreciate you guys. We had our biggest month of all time in podcast listening. And for those who don't know, that's just the audio version of the show. So for those of you who listen on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon, Android podcast, whatever it is you use, we appreciate all those who listen to the audio version of the show. And for those who listen here on YouTube and watch on YouTube, we appreciate all you guys as well. Johnny Mac, I do want to get into some of this roster. I mentioned 24 days out from the NFL draft. There's a couple voids on the roster still as it stands today as we head into the draft. I saw you write about it on sportsillustrated.com. Defensive tackle, safety, and linebacker, John. That's the one area where they haven't yet brought a new bodies into the room. You looked at all the other rest of the spots, and they have a young guy and a more veteran guy, or a discount Timu signing at the position to battle. By the way, quick note: I watched Friday Night SmackDown. Did you hear the Timu drop on Friday Night SmackDown?
I did not.
Oh, my God. I almost texted you. I'm like, John doesn't want to hear from me on a Friday night. Who was it that said that? I forget who was it. One of the wrestlers used a Timu move, though. I was cracking up. I would like to find it and send you it. But those are the three positions, Johnny Mac, that have not yet been addressed. You could say they're going to address them all in the draft, but one thing I think about is that secondary. Like, I want to say before Bradbury, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, on this. I think it was in August, the team signed Steven Nelson.
Oh, yeah. 2 days. It's either a day or 2 days before.
Then the following year, they got James Bradbury late in the offseason, well after the NFL draft. So, safety, obviously, a couple years ago, you got Byard late in the season. Now, that was a little bit different, but, I'm not sure they're going to fill all these roles. But how do you see some of these voids on the roster being filled out in the next couple of months?
Yeah, in the last year was Mekhi Becton after they didn't get it done in the draft. So, yeah, they have a long history, whether it's trades, just signings. But one of the things, and I've talked about the compensatory picks, one of the things that has been a big focus this year. Sometimes it isn't. This year it was because the Eagles knew they were going to lose a bunch of players. So they want to make sure they're in line for compensatory picks. And right now, they're in line for a third, a fourth, and a fifth. They were in line for a sixth, but they lost that when they signed Azeez Ojulari. So you can see now. So what they're telling you by that is they value Azeez Ojulari, and they're not concerned about a 6th-round pick, which is not a massive pick. So they decided he was worth enough to go to $3.5 million. What they're not going to go is to 5, 6, 7 million. You know, people are hyper focused on Justin Simmons because he's talked about reuniting with Vic Fangio. Had a lot of success with him. Now, older players, not what he once was. So there's some big name trap stuff that factors in there as well. But he'd be a nice insurance policy for 1 year if, you know, Sidney Brown doesn't develop, or the people who like Lewis Seen or Tristan McCullum. But from the Eagles standpoint, it's Sidney Brown. And if he doesn't develop, to have that type of insurance policy behind him would be, you know, pretty comfortable for Vic Fangio. And, you know, to be honest, I think if he's here, Vic's going to play him. But the bigger part is he's going to get some money. I don't know what,
right,
but you're not getting him for 1 year, $1.3 million. He's going to make 7, maybe 8, somewhere in that range. Can't do that until the Monday after the draft. Otherwise, you're going to lose that compensatory pick you have for Mekhi Becton. So, and this is going around throughout the league for teams in this conversation. One of the things, you know, people look at Aaron Rodgers and what's going on with Aaron Rodgers, and he's sort of leading Pittsburgh along. The thought process in the league is he wants to play with Minnesota. Well, that's not going to happen until after the draft,
right,
because they're focused on making sure that they get their compensatory picks for Sam Darnold, and they lost another big name player that I can't remember. But one of those would get wiped out, most likely, from that standpoint, because obviously Aaron's going to get, even though he's getting money from the Jets, he's going to get somewhat significant money. So all that factors into it. And for the Eagles this year, it's a very big deal because they're getting compensatory picks in the 3rd round for Milt, 4th round for Josh, 5th round for Mekhi. Unless they go sign Justin Simmons for $10 million.
Yeah, right. And then they wipe out a couple more comp picks. They're not going to play that game.
Yeah. So help is coming. Just got to be patient. That's why Howie has said, you got to be patient this offseason.
Which of those is the most pressing, you think, right now for this team?
Defensive tackle.
Yeah, me too.
You know, one, it's a high valued position. It's a position they value more than they got issues on the defensive front right now.
It's a lot of hope. Let's be real. That's what it is. And even as an Eagle fan, you should be able to say that. You're hoping Jalix Hunt can be something. You're hoping that Nolan Smith continues the 9-game outburst that he had. We're hoping that Moro Ajomo can fill the role of Milton Williams. I mean, there's a lot of hope on that D-line right now.
Yeah.
Which is part of it. I mean, it's part of player evaluation. When
yeah. I mean, and I have hope for all those players. I think they're good players, and I think, but it is hope. You know, it's not proven. It's not demonstrated performance.
No, it's not.
Other than 9 games, as you mentioned, for Nolan Smith, which is still a pretty small sample size, especially now that people know that Nolan Smith exists. There will be, everybody talks about with quarterbacks. Again, nobody talks about any other position. There will be adjustments. Teams that play the Eagles will watch the film and say, oh, Nolan Smith's making some plays. maybe we got to pay more attention to him now that Josh Sweat isn't there, or
Right,
now
up
that,
until week 7 last year, he wasn't even on the game plan for people, right?
exactly.
I mean, when did he start playing? When did Brandon Graham get hurt? Was it the
November 24th, the Rams game?
Rams?
That's when he took off. I think his high water mark was 33 snaps in a game at that point, and that's when he took off.
So up until November, which was 5 months ago or whatever it was, he had never played more than 34 snaps in a game.
Yeah, well, he barely played in this first year. So, yeah, small sample size. That's what I've been warning everybody about. And people will adjust. They will make adjustments. So to just assume that's going to continue, especially when you've lost, and again, it coincides with you lost Milton Williams and Josh Sweat on that defensive front. All right. You know, when that started, November 24th, and you're rolling out Jalen Carter and Milton Williams and Josh Sweat, nobody's paying attention to Nolan Smith.
Right.
It's just the way it works. Now that he's proven himself to a certain degree, people are going to realize, hey, we got to block this kid. Some news breaking, I should do it. Cleveland is going to come for joint practices before a preseason game to Philadelphia next year.
No date on that, right? Just August.
Oh, it's week 2, but no, the dates aren't out for the preseason games yet. But they're playing a preseason game. Cleveland, long history. They were here before. The Eagles went out there.
Yeah.
Kevin Stefanski is a St. Joe's Prep person.
So you'll get to see Myles Garrett, Johnny Mac.
Yeah, Myles. That'll be fun. David Njoku, too. Those are what Nick Sirianni calls bus people. Those are the first ones off the bus, because when you see them, you go, oh, shit.
Yeah, Brian Joker's a huge bus. How's he doing? Didn't he got in a crazy fire, didn't he? Or
yeah,
something? His whole face burned or something. I thought I remembered that.
He was back. He was playing last year.
Yeah, I know he was back. I know he played, so I'm assuming he's all good. But hopefully he didn't take anything too crazy.
He's definitely a bus guy, man. Oof.
Yeah, big ass dude. So good stuff there. So the Browns will come in August for the joint practice with the Birds. John, we just talked about defensive tackle replacing Milton and obviously the edge as well, replacing Josh Sweat. At safety position, John, I know we've talked about Sidney Brown. I think Tristan McCullum is still in the room as well. That's one I'm sitting tight on.
Lewis Cine. A lot of hype. Lewis Cine hype.
I'm not as sold on this Sidney Brown movement as others are. I think the Eagles are not done at that position, and I'm not sure he's going to be the starter there.
Well, I mean, he hasn't done it, same as other people. I can just tell you that's who the Eagles hope. Again, that word, right. They hate that word, but I'll use it. That's who they hope sort of seizes the mantle. But yeah, I mean, he's coming off an injury, was not healthy last year, had a very difficult rehab. It's hard to imagine him turning into a CJ Gardner-Johnson like playmaker in his first time as a starter.
Who D'Amico was praising today. He was getting asked about CJ Gardner-Johnson. He was giving a little bit of praise to CJ.
Not the praise as far as making plays. Some other stuff D'Amico's going to have to deal with, but nothing to not praise when that dude's a playmaker, man.
He is.
Just a little bit undisciplined, you know. You're going to have to deal with some of the stuff with the podcast and the social media and all that stuff. You're going to have to deal with some of that. But when he's on the field, he makes plays. Just does.
See if Kenyon Green can do anything in our return for CJ Gardner-Johnson. I'm not sure if he will or if he won't, but we will see.
They weren't assuming. That wasn't what that trade was about. But
no, I know.
You get something. Yeah, they're not assuming equal value from that standpoint.
No, they were getting anything back. They were getting CJ off the books is how I took it. They didn't want CJ on the books anymore, and they moved on. So we'll see what they do at safety. And then, John, the last one there is linebacker. They haven't brought any new linebackers in. Now, I know you have Trotter. Van Sumeren was brought back on his exclusive rights deal. And obviously, Zach Bond got under contract. You lost Oren Burks there. And the Kobe Dean injury is lingering. You think they're good at the linebacker position?
Not depth wise, no. I mean, even if you believe in Trotter, they do, and he moves up to sort of the Orrin Burks role.
Right.
I think that's fine. I don't have any issue with that, but you need you need other guys. And all evidence points to the Eagles are moving Ben Van Sumeren to fullback full time.
Right. So that would mean you're really slim at linebacker depth.
So you definitely have to add some bodies. Now they have Dallas Gant as well, who was an undrafted kid, played at Ohio State. Then he went to Toledo. Was a pretty good college player. Signed with Minnesota. Then Minnesota cut him. The Eagles picked him up, and he was here the whole year on the practice squad. When he got here midway through the season, probably, and stayed the rest of the season on the practice squad. But again, that completely unproven. So they need at least one or two bodies at all ball linebacker. Especially if they're moving Ben,
Right.
full time.
We'll see what they do there. Let's get to the super chat. Kyle, my bad. I forgot about it. I forgot to hit this in the opening segment. Kyle checked in. He said, "Do you guys have a favorite NFL draft guy?" Johnny Mac, I'll let you go first. Then.
Well, I got to give credit to my buddy Rick Saratella,
Yeah,
NFL Draft Bible. But the best is Dane Brugler's, which is now he works for The Athletic. It's called The Beast. It's the most extensive. I think if you subscribe to The Athletic, not that I'm doing them any favors, but I think it comes with your subscription. So his, I would say, is pretty significantly in the industry considered the best.
I'm going to go with my boy, Rick Saratella, as John just pointed out, but All Access Football, they do their NFL Draft Bible this year. It's only in PDF, but it's an excellent one. So we had Rick on Friday. For those who missed that interview, that's worth your time to get some intel on the NFL Draft prospects this year, who Rick likes, who brought up some of the common names being linked to the Philadelphia Eagles. So if you missed that interview on Friday, definitely go check it out. It was great stuff there. From Rick Saratella. So, Kyle, thank you for the super chat, brother. We appreciate that. John, 24 days away from the NFL Draft. We're going to have Ian Cummings on tomorrow on the show. So we'll get Ian Cummings up. That'll be good to talk to him. But everybody's getting excited, Johnny Mac, for the NFL Draft. After this owner meeting and stuff, I think the sites are really going to be locked in, and the NFL promotion will begin, where they start promoting it like crazy. And we'll be 3 days away from the NFL Draft starting tomorrow.
Yeah, sorry. 1 day for Cleveland. Sorry, was texting.
For the joint practice.
So they'll only be in for 1 day. Last time it was 2 days. Miles destroyed the practice on day one, didn't practice on day two. So now if he practices, you're probably not going to get much done.
That's why they only got rid. That's why they got rid of one. They were like, "Get out of here, man. We only have." He's a practice ruiner, Miles Garrett.
So 1 day, and we'll see how that works out. But it's always fun to have joint practices in training camp because it gets redundant and you get sick of seeing each other as a team, and you want to practice against somebody else. So it's always a positive experience. And I'm sorry, I was texting. What was your question?
No, I was just talking about how we're 24 days away from the draft here. So after the meetings close, I think the NFL season of draft will really ramp up in terms of promotion. And, that's the next
honestly, I will be so happy when tomorrow's over and we'll get some kind of clarity for now on the stupid tush push stuff. But hopefully it gets voted down, and at least we could stop talking about it for a year.
Yeah, and we have Ian Cummings on tomorrow, so that should be good with the NFL Draft coverage. John, any more draft work you've done on like the middle of the rounds? I've done a lot, but there's so many players, and because I'm wearing so many hats, it is hard to learn about all these draft players, man. I'm not complaining about it, but Good Lord, there's a lot of draft. I know why doing the draft is people do it for a living. You know, people have the draft Bible. Dane Brugler's a draft guy. There are people who do draft for a living. A lot of dudes, a lot of prospects that break down, Johnny Mac. Anybody you like in those middle rounds sticking out to you?
Yeah, I mean, we got 12, I believe, top 30 visits. So generally what I do is put them into tiers. And I think that number's enough, and we'll continue. Obviously, it'll slow down because the main decision makers are in Palm Beach, and they'll be back later this week. But so I generally look at the guys and say, all right, where are they a possibility? And I do tier 1, which is the first round or the target to trade up. So number 32, and that's, to me, it's the kid from Boston College, Donovan Ezeruwaku,
Yep.
or the Oregon offensive tackle Josh Connerly. I think those guys, of the guys we know that have visited, those guys are potentials there. Then tier 2 is day 2, trade down, think 40 to 50 range. That's where I think Ohio State's Donovan Jackson might fit in. The Kentucky cornerback, Maxwell Hairston, a little bit of a strange invite.
I like him, actually, the Kentucky cornerback.
I think he'd be a good fit. I think that's where it comes in. I think that's his range. Then you talk about tier 3 is day 2. So they start at 64 and 96. So second, third round, obviously at the bottom. That William and Mary kid, Charles Grant, offensive tackle, he's interesting because I could see him going really high.
Me too.
Or falling a little bit, depending on how people feel about the level of competition.
I think he was graded, John, super high, like one of the highest defensive linemen.
Well, he played phenomenally at William and Mary, but it's William and Mary, and
right.
He's a great athlete, so he's testing high. But again, the level of competition, it's not Alabama.
Right. It's not. It's the level of competition. But I think even his on-field grades, again, the level of competition will sway that. But I think he was like the second highest graded on PFF of all the defensive linemen.
Yeah, and that's part of the that's part
of why he might go high.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, would he have been the second highest left tackle if he was at Alabama? Probably not. Yeah. So that's kind of what you're dealing with. And then, Elijah Roberts, who's the SMU edge rusher, seems like a third rounder to me. Marcus Embo, third round. Purdue offensive tackle. Anthony Belton's another question. Like, I could see him going really high in the second round. So he'd be more the second round guy if he lasts, but I don't know if he's going to last. Then you have day 3 and the trade up guys. They brought in that UCLA edge defender, another guy they'll probably draft because I got to learn his name. Femi. He goes by Femi, so we'll just go Femi Oladejo. And a lot of people got him going high. I don't know. He looks like the Kaylee Ringo player to me. Like if you go to bed after day 2 and he's still there, you go, I'm going to trade up and go get him. That's where I fit him in.
Right.
Because he was an all-ball linebacker until later in his career when they put him at edge rusher and he kind of took off. So I think there's a lot of projection there. And then the day 3 guys, Jaden Blue's a running back from Texas, Tyler Barron, who's an edge rusher from Miami, and Jalen Travis, who's a offensive tackle, big 6'9" guy from Iowa State. I think they're more day 3 guys. So that's kind of how I tier them, and the potential of where they might be or where. And you're going to have all the people go, they're going to go, everybody's going to go 120. You're going to hear about 120 guys who are going to go in the first 2 rounds. Well, only 64 guys can go. So some of these guys are going to ball. And that's where you really set yourself apart if you start finding players in the 3rd, 4th, 5th round.
Yeah, I think those third, fourth, fifth round, I think that's where they're going to really use those extra picks they have, John, to move around and get the guys they want, even whether it be up or down. Obviously, will depend on how the board falls. But I think that's where Howie's going to be really aggressive in terms of moving around because he's going to want to get the guys he wants that are on his board.
Yeah. And he's got plenty of future picks to do it if he wants. He can go up and he can go down, tend to get bored. Right now, they don't have a 6th or a 7th round pick, which is not, people aren't going to get excited by it. But, if you're done after, and they have a bunch of picks in the 5th round, there's no way they're taking them all. They have like 160. I got to look it up. 161, 164, 165, and 168. Like right in a cluster. I mean, they're not taking those 4 picks. There's just no way. So they might move down to keep going. You don't want to get bored. You might want to pick in the 6th round. Might want to pick it in the 7th round. Take a shot on a developmental kid. So there's going to be plenty of movement.
Yeah, tons. I mean, a couple of years ago, maybe it was last year. I forget. You always know. It was the one year, John, we were covering the draft, and we go live after each pick. This year we'll probably do it a little differently. I'll probably be live on all day and then just bring you up after the picks. But we were like, Howie made like 40 trades in one day with the late round picks. We couldn't get a handle on it. But I would assume Howie will go down that road again, and he'll be shaking and baking. Maybe not that many, but we will see what ends up happening there. We'll get to our second commercial break here coming up. We got Chris Franklin coming up here in about 5 minutes on the show. So looking forward to talking to Chris Franklin. John, the one thing I referenced that I wanted to tell you was it was Drew McIntyre on Friday who called Damian Priest a Temu Undertaker.
Oh, yeah.
That was the reference, all right, that I heard on Friday. And I thought of my brother, J Mac, Drew's
good on the mic. He can cut some people.
Yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of Drew, but he got slammed through a car windshield, and it looked like he had glass all over him. So I'm like, oh, God, that looks brutal. But anyway, good stuff there. Appreciate everybody checking in today. Hit that like button. We'll be right back in 3 minutes. We'll have Chris Franklin. We'll have more draft talk. We'll give you guys the updates from the meetings, if any updates come from there, and we'll keep you guys posted on all the developments around the Philadelphia Eagles and the NFL. So stay tuned, everybody. We'll be right back in 3 minutes on Birds 365.
The following is a real testimonial from the father of a young injured victim.
I didn't think she was going to make it.
Major Perry's daughter was the victim of a horrific accident caused by someone else's negligence.
If you don't find the right counselor, law firm that you're looking for, you will get lost in the wilderness.
Badly injured? Call the Fritz and Bianculli Law Firm at 215-458-2222 and find out why they say, "We got this."
Your financial future is on the line. Are you ready for what's next? At Leone & Company Wealth Management, we help young professionals, business owners, and pre-retirees navigate the complexities of building and protecting wealth. For young professionals, we'll help you grow your wealth, plan for your future, and make the most of your hard-earned dollars. For business owners, we provide strategies to protect your company, manage risks, and create a lasting legacy for both your business and personal wealth. For pre-retirees, we'll design a plan to secure your retirement, ensuring you can live comfortably and confidently in your next chapter. Whether you're just starting out, managing a thriving business, or preparing for retirement, we're here to help you take control of your financial future. The first consultation is on us. Get the advice you need without the cost. Let's make your financial vision a reality. Take the next step. Scan the QR code to schedule your free consultation today. And of course, go Birds.
field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on three. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
In our hometown, we all look out for each other. We step up to keep our communities going strong. And at Independence Blue Cross, we're here to keep you going strong as the #1 health insurer in the region. No IBX is always looking out for you.
EAGLES. Eagles.
Welcome back in, everybody, to a Monday edition of Birds 365, kicking off a new week here on the show. We're live every single weekday, 8 to 10 a.m. on Birds 365. For those listening on the podcast, we appreciate you listening. For those listening on YouTube or watching on YouTube, don't forget to hit that like button, drop your comments in the chat. Good to see where all of our great people who are watching. I always love to see where you guys are watching from. So if you're watching from a cool state or a country or whatever, all right, drop it in the comments below. I always love seeing where you guys watch.
Number 998, by the way.
Yeah.
Earth 365.
998 for sure. So we got 999 tomorrow and 1,000 on Wednesday. So 1,000th episode on Wednesday. The Wednesday edition of Birds 365. I got some giveaways we'll do on Wednesday as Johnny Mac requested. So good stuff there. And then we'll talk to Chris Franklin here coming up in a minute, though. John, just 24 days away, man, from the draft. This offseason is moving very quickly because of the Super Bowl. You know, you go a month and a half longer, John, when you make it to the Super Bowl and when you win, because the celebration goes, the parade.
Yeah.
I mean, we went a month and a half longer than most other NFL teams this year. So the offseason feels super short this year as we already move into April. April tomorrow, Johnny Mac. This is the last day of March.
Yeah, weather's starting to get a little bit nicer, a little bit warmer. Draft, before you know it, OTAs will be here, mandatory minicamp. Then you get all the way to training camp. Myles Garrett will show up to scare some people for a day, and all of a sudden you're right back at it. That's it happens quickly, and that's part, give and take. You want to win a Super Bowl. Obviously, that's the ultimate goal, but it is a little bit more difficult because everybody else has a big head start on everything. Everybody wants to break off a piece of your success. So we talked about the coaches before, and
right.
Kellen Moore and Doug Nussmeier, most notably. Everybody wants to take some of your players, and Milton Williams and Josh Sweat and C.J. Gardner-Johnson, even though it's via trade. Darius Slay's gone. How many defenders are gone? Mekhi Becton on offense, on and on and on. That's why it's difficult to repeat.
No doubt about it. Only I mentioned the stat, although the stat was a little higher than I thought. We got Chris Franklin coming up in just a second now. I see him in the green room, but I forget where did I put that stat? 9 teams, I think, in the history of the NFL have repeated as Super Bowl champions, which 59 Super Bowls, obviously. So I think it's 15%. Not too bad, actually. 15% chance for the Birds. So we'll see what ends up happening there. Let's go to our main man, Chris Franklin, set to join the show on Birds 365 today from NJ.com. Make sure you guys follow him at C Franklin News. He joins us right now. Chris, welcome to the show, man. How you doing in this Monday edition of Birds 365?
Not too bad. I wish I was down there at the Breakers right now. It would be kind of
well, I wish I was at the Breakers as well. But evidently they have mountain tents now. They don't even let you in the hotel, Chris, unless you're paid to play. You know what that means.
Yeah, and it's if anybody gets a chance to at least go there near there, it's some good views. But it's a lot different from what I've seen watching the picture. Like, geez, I need to change it. Yeah, it's crazy.
They're trying to get people other than NFL media people, and obviously ESPN, which pays for rights fees. Man, they're out in tents now. They keep moving out. The coach's breakfast used to be an hour. Now it's a half hour. Anyway, but I digress. A little news coming out. Myles Garrett's coming back. Chris, you excited for that?
Yeah, I was typing that before you got caught. I was like, oh yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it because I mean,
a lot of people thought he'd be here anyway, but in a different way.
Who thought? I thought it was a kid. Isn't there anybody more excited about Kenny Pickett returning? Never mind.
Kenny's returning. Kevin Stefanski, St. Joe's Prep. Andrew Berry will be back. Try to figure out the difference between Andrew and Adam, which is always difficult. Yeah, so a lot of intertwining between the Eagles and the Browns, and they've been here before, and the Eagles went out to Berea, so that'll be fun in training camp. It's always fun. People get sick of practicing against each other, so that'll be fun. I guess we got to talk about the tush push. I can't wait till this is over, Chris. I can't wait. I can't wait. I don't think it's going to be over. Eventually, here's my take, and I'm going to get your take. I think it's a horribly structured rule. I think the proposal's stupid. It's written poorly. I don't think this one's going to pass. Ultimately, I think they're going to remove pushing from the game, which it was, prior to 2005. I think they brought it back. I think they're going to remove it from the game, but they're going to remove it in an all-encompassing fashion, not just the tush push. In other words, you can't push running backs inside the 10. For receivers downfield, you can't run up and push him. I think eventually they're going to remove it from the game, but it's not happening this year. What's your thoughts?
I feel like I'm covering local government again, or like Congress or something, with all the lobbying going on.
I know.
And you're right. The proposal was intentionally vague. It just seems like, okay, make it vague enough so that everything's eliminated. Nobody knows what it is. Just stop the Eagles from doing what they were doing with this. And I'm just tired of it hearing this every year in terms
I'm
of
with
it.
you.
I think it'll stick around for a couple more years. I think the Eagles have the votes. I think it's going to be close, but I think the Eagles have enough votes for it to continue if what we're hearing comes out on there. Overall, you're right about, I don't have a problem with the push aspect of it. I have the problem with, I've seen it in a couple games around the league where there's a difference between a push and a carry, where people literally lift up a guy when they're pushing and then move that way.
Well, that's technically banned. That's technically a penalty if they call.
Yeah, 80.
You have to call it. You have to call it. You can't pull or you can't carry, but you can push. I go back to the Bush push in college. I remember watching that live, and I'm like, boy, I'm thinking there because I've been watching football for years, and you know the days, Chris, when you used to be able to, as a defensive player, you used to be able to stop, forward momentum, and they blow the whistle and the play be done. And I'm watching that game. That was a very exciting game. Was USC against Notre Dame. Notre Dame stops Reggie Bush, Matt Leinart, at the 1 yard line. I think the game's over. What a game. I'm like, wow, that was a hell of a game. Nope. They didn't blow the whistle. And here comes Reggie Bush. And they, after about 15 seconds, they finally get him in. I'm exaggerating. They finally get him in the end zone. I'm like, and I felt deflated. And I don't give a shit between those two teams, but I'm like, yeah, that doesn't work for me. I don't know why they put this in the game to begin with. It's like, get it out. But it's got to be entire. It's got to be the whole encompassing thing.
Yeah, because then people call it a rugby play, but then you start to really look and go, okay, what happens to quarterback sneak? Are we going to outlaw the actual quarterback sneak? Because technically that looks like a rugby play, except you just don't have anybody pushing behind there. You got the lines going back like this, and you try and push that way. Look at rugby. You got a similar thing going there. It just opens up with it. And then also it comes to the fact that why are you penalizing a team doing something so well? That's almost like saying, like, okay, we're out of the RPO. You guys are doing it well. Why stop doing that? Do you see anything about saying, like, when you look at Air Coryell, look at all those things, you guys are throwing the deep ball too well. You guys stop that. It just seems like it's a knee-jerk reaction from some teams Packers that seem to have an issue with trying to stop it, and they're mad about it, so they're just going to throw it out there. And if that's the case, we would have lost a lot of stuff. I mean, what's next? Would have been lost a Wildcat because the Miami Dolphins were doing it so well?
Yeah, the Wildcat, yeah. People couldn't stop that. You're right about the RPO. When the RPO first showed up, I remember Clay Matthews with the Packers and Colin Kaepernick. It was like his head was on a swivel. He didn't know what to do. And eventually people figured it out. So to me, it's not about the success or non-success of the play. I think the best quarterback sneak team next year, even if it's banned, will be the Philadelphia Eagles. They were the best quarterback sneak team before the tush push. They will be the best quarterback team. The best sneak quarterback I've ever seen is Tom Brady, because the Patriots would just go tempo, spread you out, and Tom would say, all right, here's the bubble. I'm going to take my free yardage I think the Eagles will do the same thing. So the irony to me is it's not going to affect the Eagles whatsoever. They're going to be the best quarterback sneak team in the NFL. Yeah. They converted at 93% in 2021 when they didn't use it. 93%.
And say they do outlaw it. Say they do have the votes. Okay, what are you going to do? All they're going to do is just have Saquon line up with a fullback, probably a half yard behind Hurts. Hurts quickly go behind there and stop it. It's still a touchdown no matter what. So let's run with sometimes I know the league wants to go, player safety, whatever. There's no injuries that have come with this. Like it's just everybody's trying to do this, and to hear guys like Sean McDermott and the defensive coach thing, you think tough-minded defensive coaches. I want to make sure that toughness. Blah, blah, blah. I know he's defense. He wants to protect that side of the ball, but to hear somebody just either perfect the play, learn how to stop it, or just move on. There's other plays in this league that should be looked at a lot more closely, a lot more care about than, oh no, they're lining up and they're pushing behind there and you can't stop it. Just get the 464-pound defensive tackle out of Florida. You'll be fine. Get that.
I'm with John too. They're taking the wrong approach. I mean, you could look at this league as it's the biggest entertainment league in the world right now in terms of viewership, or at least in the country, in America. And I said to John, the one play that probably hurt the tush push more than anything this year was the play in the NFC Championship game where Frankie Louvu's because you got 60 million viewers watching this stupid thing and they're like, what the hell is this? That would be a better approach, because then you can say, NFL, you're hurting your entertainment value for the people that watch, or something along those lines. I don't think they've taken the right approach at it at all. I mean, Sean McDermott again today is like, oh, I care about the safety. I care about the safety. And as you pointed out, Chris,
nobody cares. Nobody cares. Nobody cares.
Nobody cares about that, like John just said. And I don't think they're taking the right approach, but we'll see what ends up happening with it.
Yeah, and the only player safety I've seen it happen when you have Louvu sitting down there not being patient, diving over. Oh no, boom, and he hits his head, and then you're like, oh, great, okay.
That was the single worst moment though for the tush push this year. If you're talking about, for the detractors of it, that was the best moment, because it did show, even as an Eagle fan, it was like, all right, I mean, we got 6 minutes here trying to figure out this play. It was a nightmare.
I just want to see the awarded touchdown. That would be fun to me. Like, you guys get a touchdown, we're not going to give it to you, any of you guys, statistically. Wait, what?
I go back to and I brought this up earlier in the show. You might remember the 2015 Patriots-Ravens game where the Patriots figured out the formational trick. They used 4 offensive linemen. They lined up a tight end. It was that crazy name, Michael Hulema. I forget how to pronounce his name. So he was playing left tackle. The defense, but he reported as eligible, making the slot receiver ineligible. And, if you're on defense and you've been playing this game you see a left tackle and he's running routes and the slot receiver's not eligible. So John Harbaugh lost his mind on the sidelines. He's like, that's illegal. But it wasn't illegal. And, Bill Belichick was just smart enough to look at the rule book and say, I got this in my back pocket. And the most, what impressed me about that the most, Chris? He had his players ready to do it. Never did it before. This was a playoff game. Never did it before. And he just rolled it out. And he had his players prepared to not have penalties, to do it, to understand what was going on. But guess what? The NFL banned it that offseason. They said, no, this is not what we wanted. You're, sort of the spirit of the rule. And they changed it because of the entertainment value of the game. They don't want that nonsense going on. I don't have any problem with them changing this, but you got to do it the right way. You can't say, just, that's simple. That would have been my proposal, Chris Franklin. No pushing of offensive players. Bang. That's it. End of conversation.
I still look at it as a way, like I still look at it, even the formation. Like, if you want to call it tight with the formations, even just what receive them call it tight. If you want to legislate it that way, okay, fine. Make sure everybody's perfectly, make sure everybody's lined up the right way. Okay, fine. I still don't see a problem, because when you look at it, even though you have those yards after catch, it means you're going to outlaw wide receivers with the well, after a catch, they're going to throw them that way too. You're going to have the quick or you can get rid of that by just having a quick whistle. Like there's ways you can get around it without having to outlaw the play completely. Just go call a whistle. It's a judgment play with the official. Okay, you go blow the whistle and you don't know what's
People
going on.
don't
That
like
whistle.
judgment plays, though.
So,
That's part
yeah.
of the problem. Whereas I think it's pretty, it's pretty clear. Like, I went back because I could not remember in 2005, prior to 2005, pushing was illegal on offense. And for some reason, they decided to make it legal. And I went back and I looked because I couldn't remember. And I said, why would they open this Pandora's box? And they claimed it was too difficult to legislate, to referee. It was too difficult. It was too subjective. I'm like, pass interference is subjective. If somebody's pushing a guy, it's the least subjective thing in football. You say, all right, penalty. I don't get this league, Chris Franklin.
It's all about what the network's like. It's all about what Goodell likes. It's all about what it's supposed to be what the fans like, but we all know that because if that's the case, ticket prices and concession prices wouldn't be where they are right now. So you go to the first two, and I just think it's one of those things where it took a long time. And you mentioned the whole NFC Championship game. I think that was the real one where everybody was sitting there watching, going,
"Yeah, that was a problem."
Well, can't really have that and all that stuff. And it gets us talking like it is. And if anything, I think it was kind of a blah owners meeting beforehand where the only thing was, where's Aaron Rodgers going? Which team is he going to sign to? I think this livens up and helps the coverage a little bit more because when they had this, we don't know, we don't have to, and it kind of got out with some of these networks and the league and all that stuff. Will they legislate it? Will they not? I think it livens it up a little bit now too. It's got to the point where we're all looking like, okay, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? I think that was another fact. Like I think it's going to be passed again. They're not going to. The system's going to be legal still after this one. I think.
I agree. I think the worst for Eagles fans that don't want it to be banned, I think the worst scenario is it gets tabled, because if it gets tabled, that means they don't have enough votes. They know they don't have enough votes, but they want it to pass down the road, and then it goes in. They'll table it, and then it'll go to the competition committee. They'll rework it. They'll put it up in May or July, whenever the next, and it'll pass. That I think. So if you see the word tabled, I think that's a problem for Eagles fans that don't want it to be removed from the game.
That's what happened.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm saying sorry. That's what happened with the Eagles proposal when they decided 4th and 15 or 4th and 20 or what have you for the onside kick. The league wanted to have an alternative rule for an onside kick, but they didn't want it outlawed for a while, so they tabled it 2 straight years. So yeah, you're right. If they do say, you know what, hold off on it, or they withdraw it to save face, so that way it's not officially knocked down, then they have some steam and they'll revisit it again.
Yeah, we'll see what ends up happening with it. Chris, I want to get into the NFL draft, brother. 24 days away from the NFL draft for the Birds. They got 32, 64, 96, and then a litany of 4th and 5th round draft picks this year. What do you think the overall philosophy for the Birds? And we'll get into each, position group and things like that. But if you're the Birds, what do you want to accomplish? What do you want to accomplish in the NFL draft this year?
I think you try to. I think day 2 is going to be the day where they're really aggressive. I think I would not put it up. I'm still leaning towards a trade the 32nd pick because that's going to have a lot of value with that 5th-year option. So I wouldn't be surprised. I really think they wouldn't be surprised if they trade that pick to move back. We're all going to be up late going, yeah, it's just going to be fine. The Eagles are picking, and then the Eagles are traded with the Seattle
That's
Seahawks.
the worst when you don't have the pick in the first round and you got to write something and it goes to the 2nd round. But hey, I'll take it. Last time it was Lamar Jackson. Typically, there doesn't seem to be a quarterback that people would maybe want to go up for, but boy, the more I see people talking about, now I hear Tyler Shope, I don't even know how to pronounce his name, from Louisville. Teams are so desperate for quarterbacks, whether it's Jackson Dart or him. Is there a quarterback you want to go up for and get? Jalen Milroe,
That's the
quarterback. That's the guy. That's where you get some value too. The Eagles that year, the Lamar year, they got a future second round pick along with the ability to go down.
Because I think teams like the Seattle Seahawks, you look at maybe the Browns, but I look at the Seahawks as a team, maybe the Saints too. Maybe they trade up, they don't have that many picks, but I look at the Seahawks as a team that you look at the Sam Darnold trade. I mean, the signing when he signed Sam Darnold, it's effectively a 1-year deal. You look at the systems they like to use up there. You need an athletic guy, and the fact that you have Darnold, he's not right to me. Jalen Milroe is not ready to start right now. He's not.
No way.
But you have Darnold there for a year. Seattle has, I think, 2 second-round picks, and they have, I think, a bunch of other stuff you can use in that one too. That's the team I really look for. As you know, Howie and Josh Snyder, they know each other for a long time. They got a decent relationship between them. That's the team I really look at as a potential. Say, hey, you know what? Trade up, you get another second-round pick that you can use, and then all of a sudden, you got the 2 seconds. You get the third, you get the fifth. So then all of a sudden, Howie has a couple fifths, and he starts playing jump around the board in the second round, try to get the guy. You get a defensive tackle, and I think you get an edge rusher. Those are 2 things. And if you really want to get the tight end, you can get that too. But I think you get tight end 3rd round. I think there's still gonna be a decent amount of guys that get that. But I look at them trading back. You address the line. The benefit of you having this depth already on your team is it gives you the luxury of getting the best player available, and you have the ammunition to move around and get it if you want to. So I think that's what I say. Get the best player available, address your offensive and defensive lines, get a tight end just in case, and from there on out, whatever the best safety, you can get a safety if you want to, but get the best player available and don't worry about forcing need for 3-4 years down the line. Just roll with it and see how it plays out.
So we gotta up the propaganda on the other court, Tyler Show and Jalen Milroe I mean, if I'm the Eagles, I'm like paying news outlets to pump these guys up like crazy, man.
I think Pittsburgh's taking a quarterback. Seattle, as Chris mentioned, Las Vegas. I mean, you think about Geno Smith. All right, he's the answer now, but the future. They need a quarterback. The Saints need a future quarterback. There's so many quarterback desperate teams, and this is not a great quarterback draft in my mind. But boy, you mentioned Howie there. You know, I was thinking about it, Chris. You mentioned his relationship with John Snyder. What Howie was like so lightly regarded when he first was GM. Now he's the elder statesman. He's got the relationships with everybody. He's a GM god. He's like the Brandon Graham of GMs. Everybody tried to run him out of here, and now he can do no wrong. It's one of the most amazing stories if you think about it. It really is.
Are we going to see it after every draft pick? How we're just doing this after everyone's like, yeah, I just got another one. Just was like, but it is looking back from, and I know it was talked about a bunch, but you could thank Chip Kelly for it. That year away, he looks different, and I know the league is still, you don't see that many people from outside the quote unquote traditional routes, the guys who used to play or used to be in scouting aspect, being general. You see those being dominant, more general managers as opposed to guys who took the path of Howie, but it's opened up the way. You need to start looking at guys like that a little bit more, and not just as your assistant GM, but as your lead guy, because it gives you a whole different perspective. Because if you had, like, say Joe Douglas was running his team right now, because he's getting the true traditional guy, I don't think half these moves will be made. I don't think 3/4 of these moves would have been made. We would have forced as well too. We've seen that what happened with the Jets. So I look at that as a way of to have mind to think a little bit outside of the box. Yeah, and it's hard to believe after his first tenure as general manager, but you thank Chip Kelly for sending him away and getting a whole new perspective, and I think Jeffrey Lurie too for allowing him to go around and talk to these other general managers, front office people from different sports, and get that new collective and thinking.
Yeah, he did. He talked to Brian Cashman. He talked to R.C. Buford. He was over, I know, with the Manchester United, whoever was running. Yeah, he talked to a bunch of different people from, different sports who were successful GMs. It truly is. And I still remember when Jeffrey put Howie back in position after firing Chip Kelly, and it was some kind of vice president of football operations, and then he was talking about, oh, but we're going to address the situation long term, and then it became osmosis. Just, all right, I got through the press conference. Now we're going to slowly just put him back into place. And everybody stopped asking questions, and it just became like a thing. And he was back in position. It's truly an amazing story. That is one where a book will need to be written on to explain what went on there. But you're right. Chip Kelly, in a lot of ways, doesn't get the credit he deserves, both good and bad, because he was so bad as a GM that got Howie back the job. And he also brought some interesting things to the organization, sports science, tempo, all that stuff that was sort of ahead of the curve. But it's funny, man. Sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. And the Eagles got lucky there. They really did.
Yeah, we would have thought communication, lack of communication would be the only thing that stops Chip. Because I think if Chip learned how to communicate with people better, and I think if he was more of like a true leader, I think he would have been one of the best all time. The problem with him is he didn't know how to communicate. He didn't know how to talk to his guys. Didn't know how to, the stuff that you see in Sirianni in terms of getting that connection with the players, and it's like you hear it over time. Chip didn't have that, and you see what happened.
Emotional intelligence is what. Got to coin that. But it would have taken one call from the New York Jets, and Howie would have been the GM of the Jets. Anybody could have hired him. Anybody, and he would have been out the door.
History's fun.
Yeah. But speaking of, the Eagles finally, Chris, confirmed their coaching staff. We knew all the moves, obviously. What's amazing to me is they lost 4 coaches all on the offensive side. We know Kellen Moore, Doug Nussmeier, then 2 lower-level guys, Kyle Valero, TJ Paganini. Nobody touched this defensive staff. What is wrong with this league? Anybody could have hired Christian Parker to be a defensive, or Clint Hurt, or even Bobby King. No, we don't want a defensive guy. After watching that Super Bowl, we don't want a defensive guy.
Still an offensive league. And Aaron Glenn was, I think, more of an aberration just because you saw what he was able to do with all those different guys that called in. It's like, you got to hire this guy because he knew how to coach. He obviously was too good of a coach because he showed he can, all those injuries Detroit had, he was able to fill it and they were still playing high levels for that. So I think that was an aberration, but the league still skews to offensive guys trying to poke points on the board. I think when you look at overall the guys, I see Parker's going to be the head coach before sometimes at one point in his career, Christian Parker's going to be head coach. I spoke last combine to the GM of the Denver Broncos. He said he's helped out with the personnel. He's been really good at it. So he's got personnel. He's helped with personnel. You've seen what he's done coaching these young guys as well too. You see he's able to relate. Christian Parker's definitely going to be a head coach. Clint Hurt, we know he's a former defensive coordinator. You wonder, is he going to get the chance again? I would be surprised if, say, Parker ever got a head coach. Hurt might be the DC. Who knows? Something like that. And even when you look at Joe Casper, the guy who been around for a little bit, but Joe Casper, I think he can be a defensive coordinator at some point for another team as well. So they got a lot of depth on that side of the ball. It's just the fact that the problem is it's the defense. It's not the thing. If anything, I think you'd have more defensive coordinators with some of these guys getting head coaching jobs.
Right.
But yeah, and even with the Kellen Moore, you probably just knew that he was going to get Brandon Steele no matter what. Yeah,
I mean, I know timing matters, but boys, if there was ever a time to lose some of these guys, it would be after having the number 1 defense in the NFL, winning your 14 of your last 15 games and shutting out Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid in the Super Bowl. If they didn't get hired now, are we sure they're going to get hired away? I don't know. Maybe the timing,
And I also think that there's something there that Vic's not going to be coaching here forever. So if you stick around here a little bit, maybe you're named a successor in the future. So I think that's in play as well too.
Yeah, that's legitimate. Who knows? I mean, Vic's 66. He's healthy. Obviously did a tremendous job. So it's not going to be anytime relatively soon. I do think anybody could have hired Christian Parker to be a defensive coordinator this year. Anybody. Forget about, I'm not talking about head coach. He might be a head coach now. I'm saying defensive coordinator. I would have hired that guy coming off this season.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
One of these crappy teams. And
yep.
I mean, Christian, I'm sure, he would love to think about replacing Vic somewhere down the road. But if he got an opportunity to be a defensive coordinator this year, he'd be gone. He's an ambitious guy. He wants to go where he wants to go in his coaching career. I'm amazed. Kellen interviewed him. That, to my knowledge, that was his only interview. I don't get this league, Chris. A lot of times I don't get this league.
And you think, especially with how a lot of these teams are now going with a lot of younger guys to start out with at a position that in an area of need, the secondary, with as much as passing game is emphasized, you would think you have a guy like that to help translate it, help the transition from college to the pros, help make things explain things, simplify. Because when you look at it, a lot of these guys are just teachers. That's all. They're like, oh, they're just teachers who get paid a lot to do this, and he's been a really good teacher to a lot of those young guys. You look at his track record, Quinyon Mitchell. You look over with the Broncos, Pat Surtain, just all those guys that you see in the cornerback tree that he's helped develop, and you look now, it's like, you don't see this guy, what he's able to do. I know defensive coordinator, you get to look at the whole entire thing, but even though you hear a lot of coaches saying, "Wow, I got to look at the whole entire like the defense or side of the ball." They look at, they still go back to where they made their way about where they grew up with, and they're going to look at the cornerback. So, Christian, he look at the whole entire defense. You go, "Oh, these cornerbacks over here. No, think about doing this or this or this." And so I think overall, he brings a lot to the table, and the fact that nobody has been willing to really go outwardly and try to snag him up helps the Eagles, but I have a lot of questions about why. It's just crazy.
Yeah, I'm with you. There's so many bad defenses in this league, and I don't know. After watching what that defense did in that Super Bowl against that opponent in this era,
that's what I mean. If not then when?
Yeah. All those guys deserve credit, but I do think Christian is sort of thought of as the next guy after Vic. And that would have been my first call, and I would have waited. I know a lot of teams don't want to wait, and what are you doing in the off season? Why can't you wait?
Right. Why rush 3 weeks for a 3 or 4 year decision? I mean, I'm with you, John, but that's the world we live in.
Yeah. Anyway, at C Franklin News, make sure you follow Chris on the X platform. Read him at nj.com. Does a tremendous job there, doing everything now. Eagles, Jets, Giants. It's all encompassing for Chris Franklin. But I don't want to bring everybody down by talking about the disaster that is the New York Giants. So my last question will be on the young players here. You see what the Eagles are doing. They want all these young players to step up. Tyler Steen, Moro Ajomo, Kaylee Ringo, Sidney Brown. Those are the guys in the conversation to be starters. Did I miss anybody? I don't think so. Jalix Hunt. I'll throw Jalix Hunt in there as well. Yeah, Dallas is still here. So I'll throw Jalix Hunt. So those 5 guys, give me who you're the most excited about and the guy you're like, this is probably not the answer.
Jalix Hunt's the guy I'm most excited about. I'm really excited about it because he reminds, and don't take it away, like he reminds me in a way you could have used Javon Curse back when Curse was really going big.
Ooh,
as a joker. Like you move him around, you move from the edge. He's got the
smart guy too. Cornell played defensive back. Yeah.
And that's the key too, is the defensive back, because how sometimes these edge rushers have to drop back into coverage. You manipulate the look the right way, you get him dropping back. He can be effective in that aspect too. I think there's so much you can use with Jalix Hunt. And you saw for a guy who was supposed to be a developmental guy who's supposed to be redshirted and not see the field, and to be thrown into it and to be as effective as he was, I think he could be really, really good. And the sky is just keep getting better and better and better. So I look at the potential uses he can do there. The one I'm so worried about is Steen.
I'm with you.
because you couldn't. He had trouble beating Becton out, and Becton was really good, but still, he had trouble beating Becton out. He's got the experience of being in a competition now, but the fact that you gave up CJGJ for Kenyon Green and a late round pick, they're going to try to look at Kenyon a little bit more. So I'm worried about, like, is he able to even beat Kenyon Green in this? So in essence, you don't want it to be a wasted third round pick in a sense. I know it won't be a waste because he started some games for you and have you, but I don't know. Like, I hope you hope you see him become a guy that could take over his job and say, you know what, I'm not going to let this happen to me again. And I just look at his pass blocking is the way he needs to be in his fourth year. I think it's the third year now. He needs to be a guy who's shown that he's made a marketable improvement in that area of his game. He gets two hands. His hand placement is a little off at times. Gets in that box. He gets beat on the inside by the quick rush. So I want to see. I'm still a little worried about that position as a whole.
So if I give you on March 31st, if I give you Tyler Steen versus the field, which is Kenyon Green, Trevor Keegan, you know who the Eagles' best right guard is? Matt Pryor. That's who their best right guard is.
I think Matt Pryor might win the job.
He played well. He played well in Chicago last year. Bad team, but he played well. So I'm giving you Tyler Steen versus the field. Tyler Steen, Trevor Keegan.
Taking field.
I mean, we could take Trevor Keegan. Yeah, I've never seen him, but
I'm taking the field.
I'm taking the field, and it's a draft pick.
Field draft pick, yeah. All right.
That's second round draft pick.
That's not a bad idea. Donovan Jackson.
That would probably make Tyler Steen the first bad third round pick in a little bit for him.
I still think he could help you as a swing tackle. I think he's more comfortable at tackle than he is at guard.
Yep. Make him the swing tackle. You make Kenyon the swing guard, and then you roll with that. And Keegan, you hope you see a little bit more than that, but I don't know. I still think he's behind those guys just a bit heading into this season. I still think he's behind. I hope he's proven wrong in OTAs and training camp, but I still think he's behind those guys.
We'll see what happens. Chris, thanks for joining in, brother. We appreciate you doing it today. We know you're covering those other teams, but there's nothing like covering the Philadelphia Eagles. We know that, brother. So good job today. Make sure you guys follow Chris at C. Franklin News. Read all his work at NJ.com. Chris, well done, man. We appreciate you joining in, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Appreciate it. Wish it was just the Eagles. That's a whole other story. Thank you, guys.
I wish I could cover the mess that is New York football. I think that would be fun.
Well, I was going to ask you, is it more fun to cover a team that's so damn good or to cover the bottom dregs of the league? Because you always have something to talk about when a team stinks like the Giants and the Jets.
I kid you not. I broke it out, and I'm not making this up. I broke it out in how the stress that has been dealing with those New York teams. So I'm like the Eagles stuff. I'm like, it's I'm not making that up. I have had. If I was dealing with Giant stuff, I'd also like, here we go again. So I'd rather the Eagles.
Yeah, it's like a treat to get to the Eagles portion of your work. All right, brother, we appreciate it, man. Thanks, bud.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
All right, good stuff from Chris.
I love the Jets. It came out today. I think Rich Amini is a great Jets writer. Is talking about how excited the Jets are about Justin Fields. That's where.
Well, it's funny because I like who they hire as their coach. Is it Aaron Glenn? His name is.
Yeah,
I like him, man. I was hoping he would have some success, but I am.
Well, he's an old Jet. He was a great player.
I know, and I think he has a chance, but I am not a Justin Fields guy. It's hard for me to hitch my wagon to him. That's for sure.
Yeah. I remember back in the day when Howie was. The Eagles were going to play Avonte Maddox outside, and they said Avante's very small to play outside, and it didn't work. But he compared him to Aaron Glenn, who was an undersized outside corner, and ended up being a Pro Bowl player. You don't see that very often. Great player, Aaron Glenn.
Good stuff there, Johnny Mac. John, just a couple of minutes left today, brother. What's the week look like outside of these owner meetings? It's nothing after that, right? And then we're just kind of in the 20-something.
No, then you're back to draft. You're in full draft mode, so we'll hear a lot about player visits. They're probably not going to be much of that over until Howie gets back, which will be Thursday, Wednesday or Thursday. So. It's all about the league meetings this week, all about tush push, overtime, 18 games, all that kind of nonsense. Eagles with the overtime proposal, kickoff rule. What they should have done last year, I think they're going to do this year, and that's going to be, if it's a touchback, they're going to move it out to the 35, and that will force people to kick more of the kickoffs in the landing zone, because they don't want the offense to start at the 35. So that'll kind of, and that might bring the little bit of the kickoff return back. So yeah, big over legislation week in the NFL.
Yeah, that's always boring, but I guess it's a necessary evil in the offseason. Johnny Mac, great show today, brother. Appreciate you doing it. 24 days away from the NFL draft. It's been 50 days since the Eagles won the Super Bowl. So here we are in the middle mode here, getting ready for the draft, and then we'll be full swing ahead on the way to the 2025 football season. Johnny Mac, great show today, brother. Your final thoughts, then we'll let you run. We'll talk to you tomorrow on Birds 365.
All right, I got to get all tush pushed out. So I gotta text some people and see what the hell's going on down there. So yeah, it'll be a league meeting day for me from afar.
Good stuff, Johnny Mac. John, thank you, brother. We appreciate you doing it. We'll talk to you tomorrow on Birds 365.
All right, thanks everybody.
All right, good stuff there from Johnny Mac. John McMullen, the #1 Eagles beat reporter in town, my co-host here on Birds 365. Make sure you guys follow him at JF McMullen on all his platforms. Here's what I want to do today on Zander time. It's not going to be too long of a Zander time, but I think Eagle fans will like it, so stick around, okay? I want to run something by you, because sometimes you talk to John, you talk to our guest, and you talk to Sills too much. Sometimes you forget you're an Eagle fan, all right? Sometimes you forget you're an Eagle fan. I want to run something by you, all right, to remind you. M. Reyes, you'll like this, all right? Bird Gang Girl, you'll like this. Kirsten, good to see you. You'll like this, all right? So I just told John, it's been 50 days since the Philadelphia Eagles won the Super Bowl, all right? 50 days ago, this team won their second Super Bowl in franchise history, all right? Now, don't tear up on me now. I know, it feels good, all right? All right? Don't tear up on me now. 50 days ago, this team won their second Super Bowl in franchise history. I want to remind you all, as we go through the offseason, as you engage in football debates on Twitter and X and Instagram and in comments and in the chat here on JAKIB Sports, as you go and debate Cowboy fans on their YouTube channels and Commander fans as they now think they're the second coming of Christ because they won 9 or 10 games last year, whatever the heck it was. I want to remind you how dominant this football team was, all right? And I know it's past and you got to move forward, but you only win so many of these things, guys, all right? You got to take it in. You got to enjoy it. Let me show you this, all right? Let me show you this and remind you all how good the Philadelphia Eagles were last year, okay? So on your screen right now is the final 17 games that the Philadelphia Eagles played in the 2024-2025 season. Now, if it's a little small, I can zoom in at the top, okay, starting with the Browns on October 13th, and you can scroll down and you can look, all right? This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 games. This is the final 17 games that the Eagles played last year. They were 16-1 in those final games, with the only loss coming when you didn't have your starting quarterback versus the Washington Commanders and you lost 36-33. Okay? 16-1. Let's count how many of them we won by double digits. There's one to the Giants, 28-3, double-digit win. Here's one to the Bengals, 37-17, double-digit win. That's 2. Here's 34-6 over the Cowboys. That's a double-digit win. That's 3. Here's 37-20 on the Rams. That's a double-digit win. That's 4. Here's 27-13 to the Steelers. That's a double-digit win. There's 5. There's 41-7 over the Cowboys. That's a big double-digit win. There's 6. There's the Packers in the playoffs, 22-10. That's a double-digit win. There's 7. The Rams, no. The Commanders in the playoffs, there's a double-digit win. There's 8. And the Chiefs in the playoffs, 40-22. There's 9, including 3 out of 4 playoff games. And you go 16-1 in your final 17 games, and you raise the second Lombardi. All right? I love John, and I love Sills. But let's not forget how fucking dominant this football team was. All right? Do you guys remember this as clearly as I'm now remembering this? Are you guys enjoying looking at this hindsight as much as I'm enjoying talking about it right now? 16-1 in your final 17 games. You won 9 games by double digits, including 3 out of 4 playoff games, including both the NFC title game and the Super Bowl versus the modern-day dynasty Kansas City Chiefs. This season, forget the Super Bowl, forget the playoffs and the NFC title. This season was belt to ass. The season was belt to ass. Your final 17 games, you won 16 of them. I mean, I saw this graphic on a website. I forget what it was. I saw this graphic on a website, and I'm like, I got to bring this up tomorrow on Zander Time. I don't want any of our great people to forget how much we fucked up. Excuse my language. I'm sorry for cursing. But how much we destroyed the NFL this year. Like, this doesn't happen often, okay? It really doesn't happen often. 16 of the final 17 games, and 9 of them you won by double digits. And a lot of those double digits, you won by 3 or 4 touchdowns. The Cowboys, the Giants, even the Bengals, you destroyed them. The Commanders in the NFC title game, the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. I mean, we throttled teams. Throttled them. 95 points in 2 playoff games. How about 145 in 4? I mean, holy shit. Niners all damn day. He must be down bad because they can't beat anybody over there in San Francisco. And we went 16-1, marking teams. All right, so I wanted to show you guys all that graphic because it's pretty amazing what this team accomplished last year. Let's not act like because everything isn't set in stone for the 2025 season that this team isn't going to be good. Now, it's hard to replicate that level of success. All right. We all know that. And as fans, we should, be prepared for some level of, not being able to duplicate that perfectly. But it was impressive what this team accomplished. And I don't want you guys to forget that. Just 50 days removed. It was 50 days ago, everybody. 50 days ago, we all sat here on JAKIB Sports after winning the Super Bowl. If you were a post-game show listener, you sat with me till 2, 3 in the morning when we talked about it on air. Impressive what this team accomplished, and I'm looking forward to really what this entire core can do. All right, what this entire core can do, because I know you lost some guys, but let's be real. The core of this team is still together. All right, the core of this team is still together, okay? And they fucked up a lot of teams last year. Again, pardon my French. They messed up a lot of teams last year, man. I mean, now I'm a younger fan. I'm 26. I was born in 98. I don't remember watching the Eagles. It's funny. I was 6 years old, when they lost that 2004 Super Bowl. I remember that vividly. I was at my aunt's for her Super Bowl party. I remember that vividly. But before that's a wash, But this is the most dominant Eagle team, certainly in my lifetime. There's not even a candle held at second place for most dominant team. And not, at least for certain in my lifetime. Again, we just ran through the final 17 games of the season. All right. So pretty amazing what this team accomplished. And let's see what they can do now next year. Now we're getting ready. Now we're rebuilding the roster. But, the reason I show you that is because we had a lot of questions last offseason. All right. And we're going to have questions this offseason. They're fair to talk about. All right. It's not out of It's not out of bounds to talk about some of the questions that we have, but let's trust the process here. You know, I think Howie Roseman's a better GM now than he's ever been. I think Jeffrey Lurie's a better owner now than he's ever been. I think Jalen Hurts is a better quarterback now than he's ever been. But this team is in a good spot, man. How about that last 17 games? I got to post that up on Twitter today. All right? None of you take my thunder. I'm going to go post that on Twitter. Look at the last 17 games. Let me show them up one more time. Look at the last 17 games. Sills, are you watching? Johnny Mac, are you watching? There's one blemish on that 17-game span, and it was when your starting quarterback missed 3 quarters. Think about that. If your starting quarterback played, you were damn near unbeaten. You were damn near unbeaten. Fly, Eagles, fly is right, spin bad. All right? That fluke-ass Commander game when your quarterback didn't even play. I mean, come on. This team was lights out dominant. Lights out dominant. And that's why they want to ban the tush push. Because this team was so fucking good last year. There's a lot of teams in the league who can't stand to see the Eagles be this good consistently. So let's hope they can do it. But I call that the belt to ass season, baby. That's the belt to ass season. All right? Good stuff, everybody. I appreciate you all listening to today's edition of Birds 365. Thought we had a great show. Thought Chris Franklin was great. Tush push, who cares? Take it. I don't give a shit. All right? That's not what made this team dominant. That's not what made this team dominant. So we're going to be in a good spot. I hope everybody had a great weekend, by the way. Bye. How about that weather this weekend? If you're in the area, if you're in the tri-state, how about that weather this weekend, man? Saturday was a dream. By the way, I told you guys on Zander Time on Friday I was going to go check out the new cheesesteak spot down by the stadiums for Joey Merlino, skinny Joey Merlino. I did not go, okay, and here's why. I was hanging out with my pops on Saturday, and it was such beautiful weather, and we looked up Joey Merlino's, and we were going to go down. We did take a ride down there. The line was so long. We would have been there for 2 hours, 3 hours, and we just didn't value that much at that moment waiting. So we popped over to D'Alessandro's. We got a D'Alessandro's cheesesteak. All right. I got double cheese, some extra fried onions. All right. The D'Alessandro's steak was perfect, but I didn't get Skinny Joey's. Now what I'm going to do is, and maybe this isn't good for my heart, probably not. All right. But I'm going to do the Skinny Joey's during the week because I think the line is going to be a long line at that place for a while. So I'm going to do a week pickup. All right. I'm going to do a week pickup where I think the line will be shorter, and I'll grab a good cheesesteak from Skinny Joey's during the week, and then I'll give you guys the report card. But the D'Alessandro steak I had on Saturday was an A+. All right. It was an A+. So D'Alessandro's I think D'Alessandro's got better, because back when they used to get their initial hype, I thought it wasn't so good. All right. I thought it wasn't so good. I'm like, all right, I got D'Alessandro's. It was good. It wasn't the best cheesesteak in Philly. All right. And then I think they got so much publicity, they actually upped their game. So now they're pretty good. We waited about 20 minutes, man. Beautiful weather. All right. I love beautiful weather, man. I love being out in Philly when the sun is shining. So it was great. Yeah, we picked up those cheesesteaks on Saturday, but I don't have the Skinny Joey's report for you yet. All right. I see a couple of you guys joking. Just jog it off. Say, yeah, I might have to. I'm Rice. When you order a cheesesteak and you get double whiz, extra fried onions, you sit back, bro, on that, and you're like, oh, God, I don't want to move. I don't want to move. All right. I don't want to move, but it was good, man. It was good. Good cheesesteak. I agree. No cheesesteak's worth 3-hour wait. Not when you got a bunch of other good options around. But it was cool. It was cool to see that the place looked good. Skinny Joey's does look good. I saw a video somebody posted. Looked a little skimpy. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I like a lot of stuff in my cheese. I like a lot of meat. I like a lot of cheese, and I like a lot of onions. So looked a little skimpy, but I don't want to slander until I have it. All right. I don't want to slander until I have it. So Philly native, where to get your hats? Kango.com, brother. Come on, Kango. All right, appreciate all you guys listening in today. Sorry I couldn't give you the Skinny Joey's report, but I will give it. All right. One thing I want to do in the future and I don't know if this could be years away, but we got a lot of viewers that are not in Philly. I think it'd be cool to go around and, cheesesteak review or Philly food review for all the great people who aren't in the city but feel a connection to the city. If I went out and started reviewing all the cheesesteaks, and then when you guys visit Philly, you'd know where to go. I'll go Dave Portnoy for Philly. All right. Maybe I'll do that. That'd be a lot of fun. All right. Because I love living around this area. So good stuff. I got an interesting next couple of weeks. I got to go to Florida this weekend. My beautiful godson is getting christened. All right. So his baptism is this weekend down in Florida. So I'm flying down. John's Roast Pork is elite. Ian East is an out-of-towner. All right. He lives in, if I'm not mistaken, Ian, you're in the UK, right? So that's a veteran move by a UK guy to come here and get John's Roast Pork, because most people who are tourists would not get John's Roast Pork. John's Roast Pork is an elite spot, but typically for Philly people. So I knew you were in the UK. Good stuff. Near Oxford. Cool. Born and raised Philly, live in Daytona Beach now. Nice, Primo. I'll be down in Florida this weekend. Ian East did his research. I can tell. Good stuff, Ian. Good stuff, brother. You guys ever need some advice, you can reach out to me. I've had just about every cheesesteak. My top 4 are Angelo's, John's Roast Pork. I'm a Jim's guy. I've always loved Jim's on South Street. It's one of my favorites. It burnt down a couple of years ago. They rebuilt it back up. I love Jim's. I don't know if it's really one of the best or if it's just a Z preference type of thing, but I love Jim's. And then you could maybe argue Delisandro's would be up there now, man. Delisandro's was really good. I've had a couple times this year. Delisandro's has been hitting good. So I used to think it was a hype thing. I've had Delisandro's, but I like I said, I think they got better. All right. Abe says, Xander, which Kango are you bringing to Florida? Abe, let me show you something. Abe, when you travel like me, all right, first off, you don't bring one Kango, Abe. You bring multiple. You get a nice bag like this. All right. This is a Jordan bag. This is a sweet bag right here. All right. Now, I took out one of my dividers. I have one pair of shoes will go right here. A second pair of shoes will go right here. And I'll stack up 8 or 9 Kangos right here. All right. So there's your bag. Put the shoes and the Kangos in that sucker. All right. Yeah, I love this bag. It's a nice bag. So now you don't bring one Kango. You bring a lot of Kangos. All right. That's one of the things. All right. Freaking hungry for a steak now. Seal, I kind of am too. But I had one this weekend, so I'm out on steaks for a little bit until I get Joey Merlino's, and I can review that for you guys. So, all right, good stuff. Good stuff. Wayne, I'm heading down to – so I'm trying to figure it out now because my girlfriend wants to go down there, and it's her birthday, so she wants to go to Naples. I'm going to Orlando right outside of Orlando is where my sister, for where my beautiful God kids live, and there's now 2 in their family who are my God kids. So I have my goddaughter, Amelia. She's already been baptized. That was a couple of years ago. And then Luke, baby Luke, is who we're baptizing on Sunday. So I'll be right outside of Orlando for that. And then depending on what I do, I'm trying to, I might be down there for a couple of days. If not, I'll be flying back home. No, not near the Villages. It's right by Windermere. I'm not sure if you guys know where Windermere is. It's a nice spot though. Yeah, I'm up to 3 God kids already. How about that, guys? I'm only 26. I assume my brother's going to make me the godfather of his soon-to-be baby daughter. She's due in May. All right, they're due in May. But 2 God kids from my sister. Okay. I live outside of Orlando. Nice, Zeal. You're in Apoka, Florida. What is it? How do you pronounce that? Is it Apoka? Apopka? Apopka? Not Apopka. All right. But no, so that's where I'll be, and then I may or may not be going to Naples. So we'll see. Yeah, my girlfriend wants me to go to Naples for the week, but come on, yeah, it's a tough one. All right, I like working. I'm a work guy. I like to be in my studio working. I don't like to work from outside of my studio. Let's go, Abe. You're the godfather to my dog for now until I get this baby. Let's go. Abe, is your girl pregnant? Abe, you having a kid on the way? Kid on the way, Abe, or what? When's little Z coming? Devin, not yet. Once they start coming, though, it'll be fast and furious. All right, Devin? And it's going to be kid here. Come on. Another kid on the way. Another one on the way. I don't sit around and wait. All right, Devin? Once it starts happening, I'll let you know. Which one is your fave, Zay? Holy War. Oh, it's a good question. You know, I'm right. Right now, if I had to pick a favorite, and I don't want to do this. Hopefully, they're not listening. My favorite's actually the one who's not my godson. My brother's godson, JP, who's the oldest. But here's why I'm right. Because he's 4 now. So the kids are still 2 and 3, and baby Luke is obviously less than 1 still. You know, my brother didn't have his kid yet. So the one who's 4 is the best because he's the most there. You know, he loves messing around. He always wants me to play with him. You know, when we went on our ski trip a couple of weeks ago, you know, he had me doing a bunch of shit with him. So, you know, I like when they get a little bit past the super young age. You know, that's what I like. But they're all great. They're all really good kids. They really are. You ready for Raw tonight? I don't know if I'm watching or not, JD3. It all depends on how busy my day is. We'll see, though. All right, we will see. He says Windermere's big money. Is it? Both of my sister and her husband both work for the same company. They work for Lockheed, so both down there. Zander, you're a great uncle and will be a better dad. Abe, thank you, man. I appreciate that. I do try and I do have a lot of fun. The kids do, you know, there's always that uncle that's the fun uncle. I'm the fun uncle. All right. I'm the fun uncle. I am the fun uncle. Dre says, I feel out of place. You all have kids. I don't have kids, Dre. You and me both. We're kidless still. Kirsten says she has 2 boys and neither have a godparent, but I'm the godparent to all 3 of my nieces. Come on, Kirsten. You got to pick a godparent for your kids. Well, everybody. I don't know what religious affiliation any of you guys are. All right. I love all you guys. Remember what I told you. 50 days since we won the Super Bowl, and we went belt to ass on just about everybody on the way through it. All right. Don't forget that. Don't forget this graphic. All right. That's the last 17 games. The only blemish on this was when our starting quarterback didn't play. Okay. The only blemish was when our starting quarterback didn't play. All right. Belt to ass. Belt to ass. Love all you guys. See you next time on Birds 365. Thank you all.
You've been listening to Birds 365, the destination for the passionate Eagles football fan who bleeds green. If it's Eagles football, we're talking about it. Debate inside the locker room and guests that are some of the greatest football minds from around the region. We hope you enjoyed the show. We know we had a blast. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with us on social media at JAKIB Sports. See you next time on Birds 365.